In the end, it took more than 3 weeks to make and shape one piece of Deadwood. Well, I did have to fix the bandsaw along the way, and I've been diving very deep into the subject of a new ballast keel for Keryl. Still, it's looking rather good. But for those of you new to the story, this is the boat we're talking about. Keryl is a 1936 Class A ocean racing yacht, built for a lady by Harry King's yard in Pinmill. She's been my home for 20 years of running repairs, but now we're in Lymington for a complete rebuild. Welcome back to the story of Keryl Reborn. So back on with the real work, and the final piece of our jigsaw for the spine timbers is this one. This is the great internal Deadwood, the bracket with the great bolts running through it that holds everything together. Now, I promised myself back in August, September, some point this year, that I would get this complete, the spine complete for Christmas. So I'm pushing myself to do it. Let's see if we can. With all these great lumps of timber, we start with a template. Of course, I can't just lift that straight off. The old timber, I've got to set to the new timbers and the new angle. This block I'm looking at was brought in to be the first 4 foot of the bow timbers, but it had fatal flaws. They stop it being a bow timber where it has to hold water out, but it's fine for an interior Deadwood, which is in compression. I like the fact that it could be a single piece for the whole top cap. I've got other blocks that will do the lower section. For the third piece in our, the next piece in our little assembly, buried under here, right at the back, of course, are the offcuts from when I cut the keel a couple of years ago. So, best laid plans. I'm on a mission to get this done. I'm getting low on time. Actually, I came in to do work yesterday and spent most of the day just looking after babysitting the tent, putting this structure in to stop the front loading with the winds we've been getting. All the fastenings are ripping off, and then, because I wasn't paying attention, I hit the bandsaw with a screw in a piece of wood I was cutting. And there's the screw that cost me an hour and a half. It's been an hour so far, well, getting there. I'm going to say a big thank you to Kevin of Bandsaw Blades UK for getting this. He actually went above and beyond to get me a blade so I can get this this third block cut on my little mission to get this in for Christmas. Although the way I built the bandsaw table, it's quite a mission to to take it all apart just to change a blade, but it's strong and level. Right, let's get on with that. I think I really need to move that switch while I'm at it as well, shouldn't I? Righto, so the bandsaw is back together and cutting like it should, but when you sometimes think, where does all the time go? I tell you, I came in here at midday, it's now just 20 past 6, and finally we get to look down at our thing we came for. Let's see if our glue worked. You see, and then you just get started and Matt turns up because he wants a pint. Do I owe you Guinness? I just said to the camera. Hello. There's no chance, is there? Eh? I'm talking to the camera.
He's trying to make himself famous.
I'm making you famous on YouTube. So hello, the nice people.
Let's pay image rights for that.
Not a lot. Cool, all good. Guinness then?
Yeah, definitely.
Guinness it is. I have to tell you, on these dark, short, miserable December days, stepping into the boat tent, it's like stepping into another world. My little haven. The miserable weather out there. There's the colours of the woods that we're working with and the lighting. Well, I can bring you in here with a video. You can share it. There's one thing you're missing in here, and that's the smell of it. It's quite phenomenal. That's the timbers that I'm working with, and the linseed oil, the materials we're playing with. And to me, one of the absolute standouts in all of this is this stuff. This is the pitch pine planking that's coming out of Keryl. Unfortunately, it all has to be changed. And when I cut this, it's literally like going back to the American pine forest that this came from in the 1930s. If only you could share it with me. Well, I backpacked it, and I've made key rings. So now you can. I'll tell you how in a minute. But first, a previous episode was titled Classic Yacht Collides with Latest Technology, but to be honest, it wasn't really the boat that was having a problem with that. It's this old dinosaur here, me. So 30-something years ago, I set out training to be a landscape architect, which meant that I was one of the last generations to study on drawing boards rather than computers. In fact, computers followed my entire education by about a year behind me, and I never have quite crossed over to the dark side. I'm still happy with a pencil in my hand. It became quickly apparent, though, that I had no desires to spend my life in a drawing office, and I travelled the world as a chef in ski resorts and super yachts, and, well, life went on. The project to rebuild Keryl, though, meant that a chef, as I know it, would never have the time and the money in the same place to build a boat. And I've returned to a life to build a business in landscape, to pay for everything. So perhaps you'll understand why I have drawing boards set up and the tools and those old skills that I learned so long ago to do it. Fast throwaway images are stock in trade of a designer. My subject, of course, is landscapes, buildings and gardens for people, so you can see that it translates quite easily across to boats. It's the same rules in a drawing. So let's have a catch up of where we're up to with my very quick rough sketches. So rough sketch, working sketch of boat, and very rough sketch of interior or construction layout. And the thing we're really here to talk about is this ballast keel, the iron that's there at the moment. In switching it to lead, we accept that it becomes physically smaller for the same mass. But before we start messing with this, we have to understand what it affects. Essentially what it affects is the imaginary place that is the centre of gravity of the boat. On Keryl, I think that's just about there. Imagine I've got a football hanging down on a string from the ceiling, and that is the point that when this boat moves, when it rocks in a seaway, it pivots about that point. Now straight away you can imagine that messing with this very much matters how you mess with that. Now you can straight away imagine the effect, for example, of putting an anchor chain, an anchor lock up here and an anchor on the bow of the boat. Now you've added weight that's quite a way away from the centre of gravity, and particularly at a point where there's very little buoyancy. The boat's at her thinnest just there. These things really matter. So what to do? Well, let's imagine I've taken the existing ballast away, but we do want to keep the original lines of our boat. So we're going to do something within this space. But I think the smartest thing to do is essentially imagine you've taken the top off this iron ballast. So where it used to come up to here to the keel timber, now we would have it down here. There's a physically smaller lump of lead, and in the gap we put another new timber or an extra deadwood. Let's colour that in, and we through bolt everything just like we did before. Now, I think that's the most obvious, practical, pragmatic way to do things. The other alternative, of course, is you could reduce the size of your ballast this way. Of course, you don't have to miss by much to really impact where that would be. And there's one more complication. In doing this at all, it seems a good time to future-proof the boat. When Keryl was built in the 30s, she had no facilities that are considered essential now, like a black water holding tank. Her only fuel tank was up here and didn't have a capacity of 8 gallons. It's a tiny little tank. Her water tank is relatively small, sits here in the bilge. So making her future-proof, giving her those facilities, it seems smart to me to take off, let's say, another 200 kg off our new keel. At the moment it weighs in at 3.77, so going down to a straight 3.5 ton seems to make a lot of sense. But there's one thing for certain, whichever way I go forward with this, there's one thing that's definite, and that's that it's ruinously expensive. And that's what these are about. It's something for me to try and put back that I can afford to do, and I've got to say, this is pretty unique stuff. You won't ever see this again in our lifetimes, really. It was never replanted after it was all consumed, so it's rare stuff these days. Some of the figures that have gone into the Keel Appeal as gifts so far have just been astounding in their kindness. A couple of £100 at a time. It's phenomenal. But crowdfunding is also really about lots of people putting in tiny amounts, and so I hope that helps, or I hope that inspires someone to join us in this endeavour. I pledge to send these to anyone that contributes any even tiny amount. Wow, I figure leave me enough for the postage, eh? I'm back to the boatyard now to go and get on with some real things. There's one last thing to do here though, and that is to put all of these images onto Facebook, where you can find them. Keryl Reborn is Keryl's channel. Everything will be there in high enough resolution to download and have a play with if you like. Right, back to the boatyard though. Couple of adjustments to make, but this is looking rather good, I have to say. Angles are sitting beautifully. Right, let's get it out. One more time of this going in, I hope. This is the final dry fit. The next time this should be tarred and bolted together. So with the stern post in its final position, it's on its peg now, fixed to the deadwood, so that's not going to move again. But what it does, it sets its definite position in relation to everything else. And so that means that now its final position, where it meets the transom, isn't quite right. But I left, there's a line here, I left 8 to 10 mil spare on everything, and in fact when I wind the jack up by that 8 to 10 mil, remarkably everything just drops back in line. Remarkably, because when you consider just how far everything's been apart and marrying new timbers to old to be 8 or 10 mil, well, that might be luck, but I think I'm going to take it as a win. At the start of this episode, I set myself the target of completing the spine construction for Christmas. Well, it's now Sunday, 21st of December, and although I'm pretty close, I can't quite complete that mission. For me to complete it, we'll be putting the bronze bolts in, and unfortunately the bronze is sitting in Fusion Welding's workshop and everything's closed for the Christmas break, so it just can't happen. But pretty close, eh? And there's a lot of good. Come and have a look. So our new Deadwood is sitting beautifully flat on the new keel timber, and the stern post is happy on its peg in exactly the right position. And we know the keel timber is in exactly the right place because checking with the old garboard tells us we're spot on. Coming up here to where the horn timber meets the transom, there's a little adjustment to happen at the very last fitting. I've just got to curve the faces of this joint and the transom will close in, but I'll do that when the bolts are in. As we come on down, the rabbit is rolling to meet the stern post. I left all this timber on to shave off in situ, and you'll see that where this frame is coming in, a plank on there, or the line of the plank, will meet beautifully to the centre line, which is fixed now. And then as we come down to this super important joint junction here. So the rabbet will be coming down and turning to vertical on the stern post right through this point, and that's where this plank, or the replacement for this plank, will be closing across the point where we'll be putting a stop water right through. Now Keryl's waterline is here, so important to get that one right. Right, it's looking good, eh? So it took me 3.5 weeks to get to this step. I'm sure it would take a good ship ride about 2 days, but then he probably hasn't got to run a landscape business to pay for it all, and he knows what he's doing. I'm still working stuff out. This sometimes feels like an unassailable mountain to climb. Just recently I'm particularly juggling so many balls in the air just to keep it all going and pay for everything. And perhaps with that in mind, you might understand the sincerity of the thanks to everyone that's helping along. That's to the people who have so kindly donated to the Keel Appeal, of course, but it's also to the people that routinely comment on the videos. So it feels like I'm getting friends to the project now. But anyone that ever comments, I will always reply. Please do. The new year is going to see the new bolts going in, rabbets taking shape, fore and aft, the start of the framing coming together. It's just going off. You can see how this is going to take so much time for one guy to do it. But if it was easy, wouldn't be interesting, would it? Anyway, just to say, from Keryl, slowly being reborn, Happy New Year.